Welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. This week we've been talking about the different petitions in the Lord's Prayer, and today our petition is, "Give us this day our daily bread." And I want to start with a story. There were two young boys who were spending the night at their grandparents' house, and at bedtime, the two boys knelt beside their beds to say their prayers, and the youngest one began praying at the top of his lungs. "I pray for a new bicycle," he yelled. "I pray for a new PlayStation," he yelled. "I pray for a new iPad." The older brother leaned over and nudged the younger brother and said, "Why are you shouting your prayers? God isn't deaf." To which the little brother replied, "Nope, but Grandma is." Sometimes we treat our prayers that way when they go to God, as if it's some sort of Santa Claus laundry list of things we're asking for. And of all the prayers all the petitions in the Lord's Prayer, this one is probably similar to it. Give us this day our daily bread. We might think we're asking for God to provide us with our food, but it's a lot more than that. Let me tell you what Martin Luther said about this in the Small Catechism. He said, "In fact, God gives our daily bread without our prayer, even to all evil people. But we ask in this prayer that God calls us to recognize what our daily bread is and to receive it with thanksgiving." Then he goes on to describe what that daily bread is. Everything included in the necessities and nourishment for our bodies, such as food, drink, clothing, shoes, house, farm, fields, livestock, money, property, an upright spouse, upright children, upright members of the household, upright and faithful rulers, good government, good weather, peace, health, decency, honor, good friends, faithful neighbors, and the like. In other words, it's not just food. Rather, Luther is saying that what we pray for here is, in essence, all of God's blessings, and that we recognize them as blessings and offer God our thanksgiving and our praise. And you might have noticed some of the things Luther mentioned there weren't even things. Instead, they're qualities that make our lives so rich. Things like peace, a good spouse and family, good government, and more. Far too often we take those things for granted. Perhaps when we pray this part of the Lord's Prayer, it's more about recognizing God's gifts to us and offering our thanks rather than asking for what we want or hope for. God knows that we need these things, and in love, God blesses us with them. But let me remind you of one thing that's very important here. The prayer begins, "Our Father," not "my Father." So when we pray that we have and recognize all these blessings, we aren't praying just for ourselves, but for all people everywhere. Our prayer is those blessings and benefits we hope for in our lives might be shared by all people. That's loving your neighbor. It's a prayer for justice and peace and economic equity over all the world. And for that to happen, we might have to change. And the openness and willingness to do that is part of our prayer here too. I think in some ways, this is one of the most challenging petitions of the Lord's Prayer to us. It calls us to reach beyond ourselves, to recognize all that God blesses us with, and to wish that not just for ourselves, but for all